welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes here in OpenShift Commons. And today we have a super special guest. I met him at the Velocity, I believe, very recently. Hello and welcome, Joshua. How are you doing?
Hi, Michael. I'm doing great. How are you?
Cool, all good. Say, what is it what you're doing? I see flowers in the background there.
Yeah,
Any
very
info?
much.
What's that?
Yeah, and these lovely flowers are a big part of what we're doing here. So I am the CTO at Bloomon, and we are a flower subscription company, but we're actually also a tech company. And you might be similar to me. When I first heard of Bloomon, I thought flowers, tech, how, you know, maybe you're collecting an address and sending it to a flower shop, and there's a delivery. What do you need a tech team for? But actually, we like to say Bloomon is where code turns into flowers, and technology is a part of everything that we do. So to give you a little bit of background, we're based in Amsterdam, which is in many ways the epicenter of the floral universe. And 50% of the world's flowers, for example, either originate here or pass through here. Now, this has been happening for a long time, and for 50 to 100 years, there has been no new technology introduced to this industry. And so what that means is you have a lot of people involved, a lot of traders that are at multiple layers of the business, a lot of stuff done by hand, and a lot of really inefficient stuff. My favorite example is that you have tulips. They're grown in Kenya. They're brought to Amsterdam to an auction. They are sold to a local buyer who will then turn around and sell them to a distributor that covers Japan, who will take them possibly to Tokyo, sell them to a local distributor who will then eventually bring them to a flower shop. And with a perishable product, you can imagine the lifespan is really cut down. And typically the flowers are out of the ground 7 to 10 days before they end up in a flower shop and in your hands. Yeah, I was quite surprised by this as well. So the short version of what we're doing here is we wanted to accomplish two things. One, we want to make a really fantastic product available. And part of that is, of course, the lovely designs that our designers come up with, and incorporating perhaps unusual plants and flowers you wouldn't find in a flower shop. But more importantly, we want to apply technology to this. And through the application of our technology that we've developed, and of course, strategic relationships, we've been able to cut that 7 to 10 days down in some cases to 1 day, worst case 2 days. Yeah. And so, of course, the result is that the person, as a technologist, I always want to say user, but I'm not sure flowers have users. But the consumer that receives the flower will be able to enjoy it for 7 to 10 days longer than if they had purchased it at a typical flower shop.
Wow. And so essentially, in a nutshell, what you're doing there in terms of supply chain optimization, whatever you want to call that, that's applicable to other industries as well, right? It's not just the flower industry, but you are kind of pioneering that there and applying it there. And yeah, essentially making a lot of people way happier, right? Getting more out of the flower, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we say our company mission is to spread happiness. And this comes in just like you said. So we, of course, have supply chain technology that involves some basic stuff like digitizing parts of the supply chain that were written by hand before. So, growers typically did not have any kind of relationship or connection to the flower shops. Instead, they would all meet up at the auction house, bring their products in, and hope to get the best price, and that's it. Then the buyers would then take them and go distribute them to local flower shops. So what we're doing is we're connecting all of these things. And so part of our technology is that we're working digitally with the growers. So both we can send them advanced information on, hey, there's demand for this type of product. Let's plant it now. So we can then be quite efficient in what we're growing. And in 6 weeks, we will commit to a certain level of purchase. So the grower can be quite confident in what they're doing and know that there's no waste. And instead of bringing it to the auction house, they will bring it directly to our production facility. And this gets into the next part of our technology. It turns out that the way most bouquets are assembled is, again, a very manual thing. Flower shops are fairly small. They have a few workers there. They're assembling beautiful bouquets. How do you do this at scale? And of course, if you're like me, you say, well, we need technology. And so what we've done is, in addition to, of course, all the software that we developed that allows us to have these relationships with growers, we are also have built an I call it a semi-automated production line. We have a proprietary machine. Unfortunately, I don't have a picture of it to show you, but this machine allows 10 people who would previously have worked to produce 100 bouquets in a 4-hour block to instead produce 10,000 bouquets in the same amount of time.
This is really amazing.
Yeah, it's a really
I
cool
remember.
machine. Yeah,
Yeah, wow. Next time I'm in Amsterdam, I'm gonna again have
absolutely. I would love to
feel
give
it.
you a tour.
I remember from Velocity when we met. We were talking about all kinds of cloud native technologies and so on. And I get it that I get the impression that you guys are using quite a lot of cloud native stuff. Anything you can share with us? Anything you want to
Yeah,
talk about?
absolutely.
With that?
Probably one close to your heart. We use Kubernetes to host our production environment. And this, of course, allows all the great benefits that you get there. Our teams can easily deploy. We can easily manage stuff. Pretty much, we are entirely cloud, which is for me an interesting transition. So this is the first company I've worked at where the infrastructure in terms of software and technology is 100% in the cloud. And we also have this big physical operation. So it's a little bit of both, which is a lot of fun. So projects that we work on that I can share with you, for example, on this production machine, I should say also, so we're really passionate about metrics. Metrics drive everything. And this means that in some cases, we are working to physically instrument parts of the production facility, adding buttons, using cameras to try to observe events that are happening, all kinds of fun stuff like that. And eventually all flows back into a metrics platform. And our favorite metrics platform shouldn't surprise anyone who knows me, but it is Prometheus.
Surprise! I was just about to
Yeah.
say like, oh, now we have a flower metrics exporter, right? So it's directly there where it spits out some metrics or whatever.
Yeah, indeed.
That's awesome.
And the thing is, what do flowers care about? Well, they care about the environment. They care about the
Right.
temperature, the humidity. And these are all things we can collect and graph and understand. And we even have a lab where in tightly controlled situations, we put each of the weeks or months bouquet and we monitor their health in this humidity and this temperature and that humidity and that temperature. And we record it on video with pictures so that we can also predict how long this given set of flowers will last in your home, depending on where you live and what the temperature and humidity is
Right.
like and so forth. Yeah.
You mentioned already, like, it's the second time that I hear something like there's some machine learning involved, or is that
So
like
we're
you
just
said early on when you mentioned the actual people who grow stuff, where you give them kind of recommendations to plant certain things ahead of time. Now you said again predict. Like, is there anything involved there? Or?
So we're just getting into that now. It's very early days. But so the majority of our purchasing is designer driven. We have a gentleman named Anton who is a flower artist, and he comes up with these wonderful concepts and collections for our bouquets. But we are collecting all the time information we call things like last week's flower rating. And what we want to understand from all of our customers when they receive the flowers, they will rate it, but not just on did you like it, but what did you think of the colors that were used? What did you think of the lengths? What did you think of the types of flowers? And so we're building this database where we're classifying flowers across many, many dimensions and attributes. And the goal is to get to the point where we can feed back to the designer information about what's popular now and what's likely to be popular for the next season. He can incorporate this into his designs, and then we can augment what we send to the growers to say, hey, we're going to need these and those and in these colors, and using machine learning get better and better at predicting what people will like. It's a really interesting challenge in that the typical consumer, so this is a luxury product, right? Flowers are a wonderful addition to your home, but no one starves if you don't have a flower. It turns out that the people that love our product the most, the subscribers, they don't want to say what they want. They want to be pleasantly surprised. And so this for me is a great opportunity for machine learning. And so this is where we're exploring now to bring this technology in and say, okay, well, we sent Michael a bouquet every week. These are the ways he scored these various bouquets. We have classified in detail every attribute of these bouquets. Now tell us what would give him a really pleasant surprise next week.
Right, right. And actually thinking about it, it also has a kind of like a so even like social media aspect to it. Like, I have the app here saying like, oh, people who upset their better half in the same way that you do, typically pick that, right, to make it or whatever. So is that also kind of like the plan that not just rate stuff, but you kind of like get these recommendations based on maybe your interactions or your connections or whatever in that field, or is
Yeah,
that
in
too
long
far?
term, we're always hungry for data, always looking for more
Mhm.
input. So the short term vision where that starts is we say something like, Christmas is coming up. Based on your tastes and the ratings that have come from the gifts you've given your family in the past, we think here's three things that would make a lovely Christmas gift. Pick the one that makes the most sense to you, or just go with our recommendation.
Right.
I do think it's an interesting future to think about where my mother loves flowers, and I frequently send them to her for occasions. And I'm
Mhm.
not sure, the part that I find interesting is I'm very comfortable having the software tell me a recommendation that she will like, and especially when it's proven itself right multiple times. And I get credit, right? Like she doesn't think about where
Right, right.
where it came
And,
from. I wonder, do we go the next step of just fully automating it, and it just tells me, by the way, we sent your mother something and she liked it.
right.
So that's the interesting line to skate. But
Interesting.
we want to make it as easy as possible for people to delight their friends and relatives.
Right. Yeah, I think I see both aspects. You have like you mentioned Anton, who is kind of like more the creative, like person who really knows what goes together well. So I guess this human aspect of creating content, in your case, content being actual flowers, physical content, um, together with recommender systems or whatever that essentially allow you to scale that to a large audience. Makes a lot of sense to me. And to be honest, at least myself, I really suck at picking. Like I know when I see something, it's like, yeah, I like that, but like I could not ever come up with that, right? I would not, like, I would totally rely on that as well. I was like, yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I'm very much the same. And I think that this sort of element also of a delightful surprise is something that, I cannot ask you in advance, what would you like as a surprise for your birthday? Because then there's no surprise. So having a way to sort of understand a bit about your tastes and then come up with a delightful surprise, that to me is the magic.
So we had, in terms of coming back for a moment to technology again, we had Kubernetes, we had Prometheus. I think you mentioned also some kind of batch processing going on there.
Yeah, so a lot of our work, a lot of this intelligence gathering and data processing involves a lot of batch programming or batch processing, I should say.
Mhm,
Most of it we
mhm.
do in Python. We use Apache Airflow to coordinate and make sure everything's running correctly. And we
Yeah,
have an in-house data warehouse where all of this lives and gets processed through and so forth. And I can show you actually a little bit of video of just
yeah,
a high level of what some of this looks like to get an idea of the scale and the number of jobs we're running.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, let's have a look at that.
I searched for you through the valleys and the peaks. You were closer than I thought. The blue nights and the fiery days. I will always remember my first love. Gladiolus, Leucodendron, Lilium, Delphinium, Ornithogalum, Celosia, Dahlia. Who do you fall for? Bloomon.
Okay, cool. Wow, that was really impressive. Just wrapping up in terms of the airflow. That airflow essentially being this Apache uh, directed like, ASIC graph thing that allows you to define a number of jobs and how they depend and so on. And this is something that you use, as we've seen in the demonstration, to do all these kind of data processing. Is that like, what are your lessons learned concerning that, and maybe other things going into this? What's where are we heading, or where are you heading?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so some of the really basic lessons, there's a difference between, of course, logs and metrics. And when you get into data processing, it becomes a whole nother set of issues. So, for example, if I miss 5 minutes of metrics, we can move on. We can live with that. We have a lot of data to look at. If something goes wrong in our data pipeline where we're actually building metrics about the business and the flowers and so forth, this is a much more complex issue. When I first arrived here, we had situations where in the very early tech stack, there were jobs that would run before we adopted Airflow. And if you didn't run that job in the same 15-minute window every day, you could not reproduce the results. So if anything went wrong, you didn't get the same result anymore running it an hour later. And this is a great way to start, but it doesn't take you very far. So what we learned and what we get out of Airflow is this coordination and really having the dependency graph understood by the platform itself. So if something goes wrong, we can restart just the things that need to be restarted and make sure they're restarted in the right order. We can parallelize as much as possible and avoid parallelizing the things that we shouldn't do. And most importantly, by making sure that our data team is well disciplined and that we have really strict standards around our data warehouse, everything that we process can be reproduced and you will get the same result. And that is a critical feature, and not even something that I thought about, in my career up until now, just how critical that reproducibility is. And you look at a lot of external analytics platforms like, Google Analytics is fast and easy to set up and wonderful, but you have a 4-hour window. If you can't get your data submitted in that window, you can't backfill data, you can't reproduce yesterday's results. And so this is where you really benefit from building some in-house tooling around this.
Right. Potency for the win. So is there anything, like, if you think back, Velocity, or maybe you've been somewhere else in between, anything that excites you that we go like, oh, I really, want to look into, I don't know, serverless or this or that? Is there anything, if you look towards the future, that you go like, yeah, we really want to have a look at X, Y, Z?
Yeah, I think probably computer vision driven machine learning is really fascinating to me because as I work to just capture metrics from the operations in the physical plant in the production facility, sometimes it's very easy. You can put a small sensor here and capture a temperature. You can attach an Arduino to some machine, and every time the button is hit, you can read that button press. But there are other things happening, and there are efficiencies in the way everything moves throughout the facility. And for us, as we scale up as a business, we're really seeing these efficiencies become more and more important. So because our ambition is always to have a same day turnaround. So the flowers come fresh in the morning from the growers and they need to be processed. So becoming more and more efficient. One of the things we're exploring is putting cameras in strategic places and using computer vision to identify and learn from the patterns of movement within the facilities and also the various events that might occur. If someone drops something on the floor, like this is something we should capture and understand, and these kind of things, and feeding it all back into the system. Also understanding the health and something that I have as a long-term ambition, which I don't know how possible it is, but it's important to dream big, is being able to look at the flowers as they grow and understand their state of health. And so we see a future potentially where we send out drones to fly over the fields and take observations of the state of things growing and feed that back into our system as well. Really the sky's the limit, I think, with an industry that is hungry for technology and hasn't had it in years.
Right. Awesome. So this sounds all really super exciting. And now the question is, are you guys hiring? Someone out there has heard that and seen that, like maybe like, oh, can I work with them?
Absolutely. We are definitely hiring. In fact, our ambition by the end of 2019 is to double the size of our tech team.
Cool. And I guess if people come to your site, there's somewhere careers or whatever where they see stuff and can get in touch with you, and they get to work with you, right? I mean, that's quite in itself quite a big thing, right?
I appreciate that. I look forward looking to work with anybody who's interested and smart and wants to solve clever problems and also just really obsessive about metrics and data and machine learning. We're looking for all these kind of folks.
Right. Just one last question before I let you go. So the app, I think you're still not delivering to Ireland, right?
We are not yet in Ireland, no, but I might be able to make a special arrangement and send you something.
That would be awesome. The name itself, that's the Dutch word for flowers, or where does it come from?
No, it's just a name that our founders came up with. So
Okay.
you have the Dutch word Bloem, bloom,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
our name is not spelled this way. It's Bloomon, and so it's sort of like a combination of bloom and monitoring because we want to be the high-tech solution of flowers. But for our customers,
Okay.
it just means beautiful flowers.
Beautiful.
But I should
Well,
be we are Bloomon, Bloomon, .nl, .com, .co.uk, pretty much all of them.
we'll make sure that we drop a link there as well. Thank you so much, Joshua. This was amazing, and yeah, I hope that a lot of people will follow up, either ordering flowers or come and join you, right?
Or both. And I should say, if you
Or
come and
both.
join our team, you get a free monthly flower subscription along with everything else.
That is a perk. All right. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much. Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Cheers.